Hey everyone, welcome back to the Energy Healing Lifestyle Journal. I'm just choking up on my water. Energy Healing Lifestyle Journal Self-Care Challenge, day 47. Happened on just a couple minutes early because I'm excited and ready to go. So today we are talking about self-care as an acronym. Today is the letter C in CARE. And C stands for communication. So we talk about communication, the energy in the throat chakra, and also my acronym of Best You, the letter Y in Best You, which stands for your truth. So, what is your communication style? There are a few different ones that are common. One being assertive, right, where you're able to calmly come up with words. I joke because sometimes I don't, right? Like I don't have those words that I'm looking for. But you're able to express your wants, your needs, your thoughts, your opinions, your thoughts, your feelings. Ask for help when you need it or want it. Yeah, you're assertive in that. You stand in your own. You don't feel pushed and pulled by other people. It's a challenge as an empathic healer, right? Because of that sensitivity to emotions and energies around us that can directly affect our throat chakra, and the way we communicate. So if you're like me, I have had those experiences in the past, like that survival skill of, like I had shared before in my younger years, like when I was a kiddo, I learned to be quiet, right? Learn to not speak up or speak out, learn to say what people wanted to hear so that there was no trouble, right? Kind of avoiding conflict. Um, and then in my teen years, I got this spark of attitude and snarkiness where I had a chip on my shoulder and I just projected out all kinds of ego stuff. It was my ego truth. Again, I say that we have two types of truth: our ego humanness and then our soul spirit truth. Very different. So in my teenage and early 20s, probably crept into 30s, carried over this, ego humanness attitude, and I was very loud and more on, I don't mean necessarily aggressive purposely to fight, but yet aggressive as in like I'm standing strong in what I think and what I believe. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I didn't really know there would be a difference at the time. I was young, but I could be a little challenging in how I communicated. And again, kind of went from that passive one extreme to the aggressive to the other. So then really trying to learn a balance in between that over the years. Still do, not gonna lie. Communication can be a challenge, and not just challenge because of it's the choice to, like, do we want to speak or not? Some things I find aren't worth the energy, or it's like you can almost foresee if you don't choose your words carefully, because listening, I'm going to step into that in a moment. Listening is another part of communication, right? So each one of us, no blame, shame, or guilt, each one of us hear, let me just blend them this way, hear through our own lens, right? So it becomes a skill to really listen actively to hear what someone else is trying to say from their lens and not cloud it up, if you will, or taint it, like tint it. How's that? Tint it like a tinted window, right? Through a lens with our own perspective, how we understand what those words mean to us, because they don't always match, right? How one person would define one thing isn't exactly how another person defines it. Which again, no blame, shame, or guilt, and that's okay. It just affects how we communicate, right? How we speak, and then how we're heard, and then how it's shared back and forth. So sometimes, excuse me, you kind of have this awareness of your own communication styles, and then over time you learn other people's as well. And you might assume, whether you're right or wrong, I'll just say it that way, might assume that either you don't feel confident in the ways that you know how to express what you're trying to say, or that it's just not going to be heard in the way that you want to say it, so then you choose not to. Yeah, there's that too. Again, no blame, shame, and guilt. It's a dance. And I like that saying, by the way. So, but it is. It really is a dance to get to know yourself, know the other person. Even when we meditate, pray and meditate. When you're speaking to God, Source, Pure Spirit, and then listening, like fully listening. Sometimes we get some information or something clicks within, and we're like, oh, and then we go off with it, and it may or may not be the full message, right? So really getting in that space where we can ground, be centered, and completely listen, actively listen to hear it all as it's meant to be heard. Because again, our listening styles, we have the active listening or reactive listening, which selective hearing is a part of that as well. So reactive listening is more like, let me know if you guys ever done this, is when you're listening to someone speak in a conversation and you're just waiting. Reminds me of that cat waiting to pounce, right? You're waiting for that gotcha moment. You're waiting for that, I knew it, right? It's waiting for you to say that. I knew you were going to say that, or there it is, or now I can prove my point, and this is what I was listening for, and I'm going to take off and run with that. Anybody else ever done that? Yeah, I have. Just saying. So how we communicate out, how we listen and receive what we hear. Ooh, that's part of it too. How we receive what we hear. So maybe we hear the whole message, but maybe we disagree. So then what, right? That's like a whole nother part. I wasn't even thinking of bringing up today, but it showed up. So here we go. How we receive it or not, right? When we hear the message. So I can remember a time where I felt like, or I was really in tune and listening to my intuition, and I would get these cues, right? Clues, if you will, messages. And I'd be like, oh, so I need to do this then. And the next message was no. But if A is going to equal B, then I need to do something differently. Nope. I needed to have the experience, which in my logical human mind, which isn't really all that logical in this type of a situation, made no sense. Like that makes no sense. That's like stepping on my own foot in a way, and other ones, but they were kind of aggressive. So it's like stepping on my own foot. If I continue on this route, and then it's going to turn out this way anyway, why would I continue on that route? Like, I'm asking to have my feelings hurt, or I'm asking for. Yep. Hmm. Well, who wants to hear that? I didn't, right? I didn't. I still followed through, but with resistance. I felt like that kid, like, oh, but I don't want to, or how about now? Or is this my end point? Do I get to change now? Do I get to pivot now? Do I get to do something different now? Nope. However, we only know what we know in the moment, right? And we only know what we know in the moment with the lens or perspective that we have in that moment. So hindsight, I I followed it all the way through. I followed it all the way through, and it turned out as expected, right? Some might say that was a self-sabotage. However, depends on your perspective. In reflection, I can see why. In reflection, I have a better understanding now why I still had to play it out, if you will. If I had to continue on the exact same path, even knowing there was this big risk or chance that it was going to turn out not in what I assumed was my favor, right? We don't always know what's in our favor in the moment at that point. But listening and trusting is another big one. And knowing that our paths aren't always the same as others, right? And it doesn't mean anything personal. It doesn't mean anything. It just means they're different. That's it. Can we communicate that in a good way always? Not necessarily, right? Not necessarily. I, I think, let me know if this is true for you. not only as an empath, but in the spiritual community, right? When you're really tapping into intuition, which we'll talk more about tomorrow, and you're really tapping into you, right? That self-awareness and just getting that big and having that acceptance of who we are in this moment, and then allowing ourselves that opportunity to experience this human life, whether it has ups or downs and in betweens. Um, but we think oftentimes differently than other people. So then we know, or at least I feel like I know, I have that little part that might want to, that says, right, hold back just a little bit because that's not going to be received, right? Do you guys do that? Do you ever hold back, feeling like it's probably not going to be received or understood very well? So that's oftentimes why it's not received, because it's just a misunderstanding. All of it is still okay, by the way. There's no blame, shame, and guilt. It's not one person's right or wrong. We all have our ways, we all have our paths, we all have our experiences, and it's fine. It's fine. So again, when you speak, when you think about, remember heart, I just saw 1111 on my StreamYard talk ticker, just saying, when heart space down, lower vibrational chakras, right? Where I talk about in Best You, it's really focusing on the human part of us, our beliefs, our emotions, our self-image, right? The heart up is our higher vibrational chakra. So we're getting deeper into where we pull in our soul, spirit self, that energy of unconditional love from God, source, pure spirit, whichever name you give. It's still all us. It's still me, right? Whether it's root chakra or crown chakra or the energies in between, it's still me. It's just, is it a, I don't even want to say high vibe, low vibe, because sometimes I feel like we pass a judgment with that. Low vibe isn't necessarily a judgment, but we can definitely feel the difference in the vibration, especially if you get really heavy and dense. You can definitely feel a difference in the vibration. But we don't want to really bash on a low vibe completely because then humans just wouldn't exist. We're manifested in a very low vibration to be physical or walking around as a human, right? But even our own vibration can shift. It doesn't mean that we have to be at the lowest or at the highest. Just saying. So, what truth do you speak from? Do you speak from like old programmed, conditioned beliefs, beliefs that you just assumed were truth and you carry those all this time? Do you know yet what those are? Have you been able to identify what those are? Or have you consciously, like in your conscious awareness, changed and shifted some of those beliefs and have new ones now? I know I have. Or do you speak from more of your highest truth, where you can meet yourself and others with love and compassion? And that's big in our communication style too, right? Do we communicate in a way that says, okay, I'm explaining my thoughts and feelings and I'm presenting this in a way that's, good for or okay with or with love and compassion for me and you? Or do I feel like I'm trying to force my opinion or force the need or want to be understood? That came up today too, like that carryover from the kid, right? Who wants to be understood, who wants to be accepted. I mean, realistically, we don't have to be. We're all unique and we don't have to be. And who is it we want to be accepted by? Which is my other question, right? Again, not to be judgmental, but what makes one different than the other? So why would I see other people to be quote unquote better than I and vice versa, right? Why would you, if you did, look at someone else to see them as better than or less than you? And we're all human beings we're all spirit having a human experience. Human beings as we walk this earth, right? How do we communicate? Do you communicate assertively, passively, aggressively? Do you listen actively to really understand what's being said or shown? Because there's nonverbal communication as well, right? Reading and such. Or do you a little listen reactively? Do you listen for like keywords? I'm just listening to see if you say A, B, or C. Just listening to see if that tone switches when you say, like we're investigators, right? Playing detective. How do you listen? Is it selective? Do you hear all kinds of, here's another one. Do you hear all kinds of compliments and hear one thing that says, oh, you could probably do this a little bit better, and then you hyper focus on that one thing that you could do a little bit better and dismiss all of the compliments? I've done that, right? I've done that. Get all bummed out about, oh man, I didn't do this good enough, and just all upset over this one thing and not even receive the successes that I had. So again, in that communication, self-talk, how do you talk to you? Because it's the same, right? Do we really, that self-awareness, be aware, assess, and align, are we really fully aware and give ourselves that time to become fully aware? So oftentimes I say like I'm processing, or there's times where I'm just not sure what I'm feeling in a moment, right? So allow myself to check in and let it arise as it should. So I do have that self awareness. And then what do I say to myself as things are presenting, right? I could be very loving and supporting of myself and just allowing things to be as they are. Or the old critic could step in, right? So a little cautionary on that. Not to fight the critic, hold space for it, but don't get sucked into it. That could be a challenge in itself, huh? So thank you for popping in on the live. I hope you are doing things to take care of yourself. If you are able to, if you're watching this today, which is September 29th, 2023, at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be live again for the third annual live round of the 7-Day Chakra Healing Challenge. I will go deeper into throat chakra energy, throat chakra healing. You can join me live. If not, no worries that the videos will stay up for the challenge for the entire year until I'm back next year for the next live round. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Again, come see me on a live or on replay. I'll come back and respond to comments that are left there. I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, whatever time in the world it is for you. So much love. Bye, guys.